Hey there, I'm so happy that you're here because if you're just starting homeschooling or if you're feeling overwhelmed and you need a refresh, you need a restart, I've got you today because you're not failing. You just probably started with a lack of clarity and a lack of direction that fits you and your family and that keeps level of learning high. That's what we're going to share with you today. That's what I'm going to share with you today. I'm super excited about this. And, when I first started homeschooling, I thought I had started with confidence, but I actually thought that confidence came from doing all the school things. And I didn't realize that I was actually starting in a totally different place than I needed to be. And I had no real direction. And this is what we're going to talk about today. This is so, so important because if you are starting without clarity, if you're starting without a clear vision and an intention in every single area, then what happens is that you end up lowering love of learning. That's what I did without even realizing it. You think you're doing all the things, all the right things, and you end up in a place where you're frustrated, you're stressed out, people are complaining, the kids are upset, they don't want to do their stuff, motivation drops, and everybody is unhappy. And you feel like you're really failing your kids. That's what I felt like when I first started because I was excited. I did all the things, and here we were 3 weeks later crying every single day. My son and I, my 6-year-old son, and I were both crying every day. Now, I did start out super excited because I'm a teacher, right? I had 7 years teaching in public school and I was high school though. I was very intimidated about teaching a little one. I'd never taught anybody how to read before, but I thought, "Hey, let's just go with the flow. Let's do this. We can get some tools, some curriculum, some resources, and we'll get it covered." I got a little Tyke's desk and I was so excited. And we sit down and we start doing our workbook things, we start doing our studies. And my son's with me for about 15 minutes. And then he's not, he gets up and starts to walk away. Has anybody ever felt like that before? Have you felt like that before? And then I'm like, "Buddy, wait, hold on, we're not done yet." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know." So he sits down, he does about 10 more minutes. And then he gets up and he starts to walk away. And I'm like, "Buddy, wait, hold on. Hold on, there's more. Look at this math. Oh my gosh, we haven't done this math. Look, this looks so much fun." You feel me? This is what we do as parents, right? And he sits back down. He's a little bit like, "Oh, I'm kind of done with it," but he wants to please. He's a good boy. So he does about 10 more minutes. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, we have to do all the things. If we don't do all the subjects, if we don't do math, if we don't do science, if we don't do geography, he's not going to get everything he needs and we're going to fail. And after about 10 more minutes of doing this math, he gets up and he is done. He's done, like really done. And he starts to walk away. And I know I'm trying to get him back and I'm cheerleading. I'm like, "Buddy, look at this. It's amazing. Oh, look at this book. Wow." Nothing. Nothing's getting him back. He's done. And we did 35 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, how are we ever going to cover everything we need to cover in 35 minutes? I mean, that's ridiculous. How are we getting all the studies he needs to know and all the things he needs to learn in 35 minutes a day? So now I'm feeling the pressure. I'm feeling like, "Oh my gosh, we got to figure out how to get more." So the next day, we do the same thing, except I'm already anticipating the push for more. And I get less out of him because he starts to feel the pressure. And then the next day, we're both anticipating the pressure and the pushing that's coming. And we're both frustrated very, very quickly. Every day, I can get less and less and less out of him. And within literally a couple of weeks, we are both crying every day. I was heartbroken. I watched his love of learning drop. And to me, as a teacher, as a mom, I felt like a complete fraud. I felt like a failure. I felt like I just didn't know what to do. It wasn't supposed to be like this. And what I ended up doing was I just stopped. I told my husband I got to stop everything because it's obviously something I'm doing. It's not his fault. He's never been to school. He doesn't know anything about this. It's something I'm doing or not doing. And so I stopped and I reread and read some things. And you know what I found? I found that I did a total hand slap and I was like, dude, I'm doing exactly what I knew didn't work in school. I was box checking. I was just going through the motions of studies, of schoolwork, not focusing at all on his love of learning. See, I didn't do that when I was teaching because I knew they already came in with a garbage level love of learning. Toast. And it had been toast for a long time for 95 plus percent of them. And what I tried to do the whole time was raise their love of learning because I knew if I could just spark it just a little, that they would learn something someday that made a difference for them. Someday they might like learning again and dig in deeper. Someday they might learn something that changes their own life or someone else's. If I could just spark that. And here I was with my son doing the exact opposite thing, which who loves a workbook? No one. No one. I've heard from many, many parents that I've worked with that say, well, my kid actually likes my kid likes workbooks. Your kid probably likes the accolades, is what I found from the your reaction to them doing the workbooks or a teacher's reaction to them doing or the grades. They don't necessarily like the workbook. I mean, do you? Sometimes you like the feeling of accomplishment, but that can be done in lots of different ways. So when we're thinking about homeschooling and when I was thinking about my own experience, I was like, this is exactly the wrong thing to do. I got to rethink this. And so we started on rebuilding that love of learning first. Then we started on building in routines that supported that love of learning. And they changed over time, a lot of trial and error. And the biggest thing I had to do was I had to get my educational should out. I had to get that idea out that I should be doing more. We should be doing this. He should be learning this at this grade. I don't want him to fall behind. All of these things are what I call the educational should. Now, I'm going to refer you as we're talking today to a lot of different episodes in our podcast, Homeschool Success with Cami Wanis. I want you to go into the podcast and listen to more because we don't have time to go through all of the things today, but I want you to dig in more. And episode 6 in the Homeschool Success with Cami Wanis podcast is all about the educational should and how to overcome it. So that's the biggest thing, the first thing, the most important thing. It took me a solid 6 years to unlearn, honestly. One, because I was a teacher, I had extra, right? Extra shoulding. Then I had my husband's also a teacher, so I had an extra shoulding there. And then I also had my mom was a teacher and I had extra shoulding there. So I had to, and I also didn't have a system. I didn't have a guide. I didn't have support at all in overcoming that educational should. It was just me and my own brain. And it was really difficult. It was 6 years, honestly, before I felt really good about it. And so that's why we do the Love of Learning Reset in the Inspiring Lifelong Learning Academy, because that's what it's all about. Okay. So I want to save you from this experience. And many families that I work with and many families that I meet with that are just starting homeschooling or have been homeschooling for a while and are in this situation, they're feeling it. And they feel like they're failing their kids. They feel like their kids are not going to be successful in life because they're hating everything and they can't get them to do anything. This is what happens when you don't start with clarity, purpose, and intention. Do you see what I mean? How important that is? It's so, so important. I'm going to share with you a lot about what I'm seeing and what you can do to help start with clarity and start with purpose and intention. Now, have you seen a lot? I've seen a lot in Facebook, Instagram, all these things. I just need a curriculum. We need a new curriculum because this one isn't working. I just need to get started. What's a good program for? Whoo, there's so much that goes into that question. That is the starting place that I started from in my whole experience there that ended us with a low love of learning. We don't want to start there, okay? So this is really really important that you get that. Now, remember that there are so many opinions out there right now. Homeschooling is blasting. It's improving so much. It's like going gangbusters in the United States. But that means because it's so new, which it's actually not new, but because it's new for most people, that there's a lot of opinions, a lot of advice, a lot of everything going on out there. Everybody is so helpful and it comes from a genuine place of honest wanting to support. However, I see a lot of things of people starting in the wrong place because of advice they've been given by people who haven't had the fruit on the tree. And I'm going to direct you to episode number 76 because episode number 76 comes with how to find the homeschool advice that you can trust. And I'm all about fruit checking, okay? So just because someone's used a curriculum for 1 year, couple years doesn't mean it's right for you, even if they've used it a long time. Doesn't mean it's right for you and your family. It can narrow down the field, but there's so many great things out there. We have to do a lot of work on the back end to understand what actually fits for our family. And there's also a whole other messaging thing that we're going to get into in just a second here. But all the advice, I just want you to look at it and be grateful for it. Take it with for what it is and then look into anything you see, blogs, any kind of Facebook post or anything that you see that has they say, "Oh, do this first," because a lot of things that I've been seeing and I look into all of them that I find because I'm always curious what's the advice being given out there. And a lot of the advice is de-school first, which I'm going to talk about that. Trust me. Not I am I am a fan of doing a reset, but not in a way of deschooling because they don't tell you how to deschool. People say deschool and they just mean they don't know. We don't know. Deschool. Well, what does that mean? And what is it supposed to do? They don't tell you any of that. Second thing is that people tell you to get a curriculum or get your program or they might even be good enough to say, "Hey, figure out what your educational methodologies are and then find a curriculum that matches that." A little bit better advice, but we're still starting in the wrong place because when your kids come out of school, when you're coming from a brand new I'm starting with kindergarten, pre-K, whatever, and I'm starting homeschooling my 4-year-old, my 5-year-old, you have the educational should. And so, what I mean by that is that either your kids do, or you do, or both. And what I mean by that is you have the idea that this on one side is all the books, the curriculum, the classes, the programs, and even the educational tools, and this is important learning. This is considered important to adults, to society, to uh, to the people who say what education is, right? And that has some connotation for you and your kids. So your kids may think this is important learning, but it's kind of boring. Or maybe they think it's so limited. I don't see the actual real life application. Or maybe they think I'm not very good at this because they've had an experience in school where that's happened. So what you have and on the other side, there is all the stuff they love to learn about. Maybe it's skateboarding, maybe it's butterflies, maybe it's basketball, whatever it is, this is stuff they like to learn about, but it's not very important according to society and adults. Do you see what I'm saying? They have this difference and they think, "Oh, I'm good at this over here, but it's not very important. The over here is the important learning, but it's kind of boring. Maybe I'm not that good at it." And this is stuff that I don't really see the relevance to. What we have to do, this is the most important thing before we choose curriculum, before we do anything else, is we have to bridge that gap. We have to connect those two so that they see that all learning applies to life, all learning is important, and they can do all of it. Not to say that it's one's better than the other, but it all applies. It's all learning. And when they feel confident in that, when they get that love of learning up that, oh, wow, that math applies to this. Just yesterday, actually, my son, who's 17 now, was just saying to me, I really like the real world math class, Mr. King's real world math class, because it's showing me how you can take all of these things that we're learning that you have to learn in the book or whatever, and it's telling you how that works in the real world. It's just great to see that. He just told me that yesterday. And so when we can see that, it's so much more engaging. Oh, that's what that's for. Oh, that's how we do that. It's so important for raising their love of learning and building lifelong learners. We are trying, if you want to build a successful adult, if you're trying to build a successful, independent, capable adult, which I know you do, we have to build lifelong learners. We have to build that for retention's sake. When you were in school, did you remember everything that you learned? No, you didn't. You remember some things, but you remember a lot of things that were on just for a test or just for the project. Or maybe you didn't even learn it at all. You just kind of, that wasn't important. And you just skipped that part. You skipped that assignment. What we're doing here is lifelong results. That is how you raise kids that are future ready, kids that are ready for success in anything that they do. Which brings me to my next point. So that was the first point, is getting kids, bridging that gap. Okay, we have to do that. The second thing is that we have to make sure that we begin with the end in mind. Way down over here, when our kids are 25 years old, this is something I talk about with all parents. And I say 25 because it's not an arbitrary number. I say 25 because they are usually like out of college. If they're going to college, they're doing their thing, whatever. So that's what you want to do. You want to think about, who are we trying to raise? Not what their profession is, but who are we trying to raise? What does that person look like? We get into great detail about that in the Inspiring Lifelong Learning program to make sure that that vision is clear. Because if you don't have an end goal, then it's like driving around with no destination in the GPS and just looking at the roads and hoping you're going to get there. That's what choosing curriculum first does. That's what choosing just going through the motions does. That's what the educational should does to us. That pressure we feel, it translates often into our comfort zone, which is typically the educational should. But it lowers love of learning. And that is not the person that we're trying to create. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families about this, and nobody ever said, well, I just want him to get by. I just want him to be, to be able to work a something, any old job will do. I don't care what kind of person they are. I don't care if they have character, if they're honest. I don't care if they Nobody has ever said that to me. We don't want that for our kids. We want our kids to be successful, prepared, capable, independent, critical thinkers, and be prepared to take on whatever challenges that they choose to do, and be prepared to be successful at them, right? That's what we want. Well, guess what? We need lifelong learners to do that, because we can't ever teach them everything possible. It's not how it works. We didn't learn that in school. We can't cover that in their whole life. We just can't. But if they're lifelong learners, they'll learn what they need to know when they need to learn it, and they're confident that they can. I've talked with hundreds of parents, like I said, and every single one of them wants that. What a beautiful gift we can give our kids. to be able to do that. But we have to start with that kid in mind, that young adult, that 25-year-old. We're not raising kids, we're raising adults. And then we work backwards with intentionality to make sure that our culture, our routines, our curriculum, our schedules, our resources, everything matches up to keep that love of learning high. Because even though I almost killed my son's love of learning, it took us a lot of trial and error. But what I realized through our journey is that only a culture that supports high level of learning will develop lifelong learners. A family culture, a homeschool culture that keeps and inspires love of learning consistently. That's the only thing that will raise the type of adults that we're trying to raise. I've done it with my own son. I've helped other families do it with theirs, no matter what situation they're in. However low level of learning is, the good news is that you can get started there. You can do it, and it's amazing. So one thing I do want to about this end goal, I want to give you the episode 106, episode 106, homeschooling for lifetime results, to get that end goal clarified and to really think about that intentionality around it. Okay. And then the third thing I want to give you today for starting and making sure, or restarting, making sure that you have a lifelong learning idea in mind and we're going to work toward those results, is that I want you to take a breath, and I challenge you to not choose tools right away. I know. I know. Your brain is like, but I need a curriculum. No, you don't. What you need is a love of learning reset. Now, that's what I'm talking about. The difference between deschooling and love of learning reset is intentionality. There are specific steps that we go through to bridge that gap between all the should learning, the what the real important quote unquote learning is by society and school standards, and what I want to learn, the interest learning, the what I feel like I'm good at, and bridging that gap is the love of learning reset. That's the very first thing we do in the Inspiring Lifelong Learning Academy. And it is so important because it resets everything. It resets your family relationships. It resets your expectations about what learning is, that bridging that gap and where learning happens. Where does it happen? Well, lifelong learners know that learning happens everywhere all the time. Do you get that? Love of learning reset builds confidence. It rebuilds confidence in learning. It heals. It develops new routines that support this level of high love of learning and inspiring love of learning. Deschooling, and what most people consider deschooling by default, is a break. They think that a break is all you need when you're transferring out of school. Just to de-school means a break. Well, what happens, and this has happened to me all the time. I remember one mom telling me one time, well, we took them out when Christmas break started, and then we de-schooled. We did de-school. And I said, okay, what did you do during their de-schooling period? Oh, we took a break. But here's the thing. She said, we started back up and everybody's hating it. We're all in this like total frustrating place where complaining is happening and I can't get him to do anything. I said, yeah, there's a difference between taking a break and resetting, doing a love of learning reset. There are specific steps to take to make sure we're intentional about rebuilding. Does that make sense? It's so huge. The deschooling makes me want to lose my mind because it's not effective. You just went into doing the same thing you were doing before. You just took a break. You like a vacation. You gotta be able to get into a new place. And after the love of learning reset, after you go into that new place, what happens is that now you'll have a total different rhythm. You have a total different mindset for what learning is and where it comes from. And you'll know exactly what your methodologies are. You'll know all these things that'll better fit your family. And it makes choosing the right curriculum better and easier. You'll be able to choose something that actually fits your family instead of choosing something that just, oh, it sounds good at the time. Let's just try it. That is a often, and it was for me and a lot of other parents that I work with, and a lot of other parents I know, a waste of time, a waste of love of learning. It lowers love of learning and a waste of money. There's so much that goes into this. I know we're going a little long today, but want to get all this information to you so that you don't start homeschooling in the wrong place. You don't start homeschooling in a place that lowers love of learning. You're going to start in a place that raises love of learning, and then you can develop the culture that keeps it high consistently. That's what the Inspiring Life Learning Academy does. But I want you to know that it can happen. It can happen. The ownership of education. What if your kids actually took ownership of their education? What if they were hungry for it? What? Crazy talk. Crazy talk. It's la la land. I'm not going to lie. I feel like that all the time in my house with my son. It's crazy. I hear that from the families that I work with all the time. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just pulled something out that we studied 2 years ago and like just pulled it out of nowhere. Oh, yeah, this and this and this. That reminds me of this. Oh, don't you remember when we did what? Studying on their own, pulling out books, reading them on their own, doing work on their own? It's possible. It's possible. If you want to see what that looks like, uh, check out episode 53, Lifelong Learning Results from a Teen's Perspective. That's an interview I actually did with my son. I think it was last year or a year and a half ago, but I realized he was a lifelong learner about 2 years ago, and I couldn't undo it if I tried. How great is that? So it's so amazing when that happens that you kind of like, how did that even happen? Well, it happened because we had a culture and we have a culture that continually supports high level of learning because it will drop with lots of different factors in life, in the world, in family situations with growth and hormones and all these things. It just drops a little. So sometimes we have to see the cues and we have to know how to raise it back up again. And we do that long term, you will raise lifelong learners. I guarantee that. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. I will also direct you to episode 24. Your homeschool could look like this. So these are both in YouTube and in our podcast, but the YouTube doesn't have numbers on them. So you have to look them up by the title. I just want you to know that this is possible. I want you to know you can do it. And I want you to take a breath if you're just starting. And if you need a reset and you want to start in a place where you're not going backwards, you're not doing trial and error, you know you're confident about where you're going, then contact me. Schedule a call with me. This is something I love to do. I love helping parents make sure that they know that they're headed to the adult that they want to raise and everything matches up with that. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. Book a call with me. I love to chat with you and just see where you are, see what you need. All of this is individualized. I can't go super specific until I chat with you because everything is unique to your own family. We have some principles that we talked about today, but everything's unique to your own family. So we need to have a conversation in order to know the exact right next steps. I'm so excited for you. This is a journey that if you are on the journey of raising lifelong learners and you're intentional about it, Oh my gosh, the joy, the peace, the calm that exists as a parent knowing that your child will be prepared for their future success no matter what they do. It is so empowering, and I can't wait to get you on this journey. Now, if you have resonated with this in any way, first of all, you can schedule a call with me anytime. The link is below in the show notes, in comments, in description, wherever you're watching or listening to this. But also, you can just DM me. It's totally fine. Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and we'll talk, okay? But I also, if this resonated with you, please, please, please don't keep this to yourself. We have lots of families that are starting homeschooling right now, and they need this information. So please forward this to them and share this with them so that they can get the lifetime learning results too. I am on a mission to make sure that all families make sure we raise confident, independent, capable adults. And that is only possible if we share the information with everyone. So please share this if you're listening to this on YouTube or on podcast. Please subscribe, please like it, please leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and leave a little comment. I'd love to know what resonated with you today. And if you have any questions, please contact me. I'm so excited for you on this journey, and I know you're going to get amazing results. I'll talk to you soon.